Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FinTech Times. We are here at Sibos 2022 in lovely Amsterdam, and we've got the sun shining on us outside. And inside, we've been joined by Martin McCann, the CEO and co-founder of TradeLedger. Martin, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having me along.
Thank you. What do you make of Sibos so far?
It's pretty exciting. We're getting back to meeting face to face, and
Yes.
that makes it much easier to build relationships and get business done to drive innovation.
Yes, and everybody appears to be here. It's a great crowd, great community have turned up, they're all discussing very interesting things.
It's good to see friends old and make new ones.
Yeah, that too. I think the other people that I've spoken to said the last one was in 2019.
The last
So-
face-to-face one, yes.
It's quite a while ago, if you think about it. I mean, what were you doing?
That's an age.
2019?
That's an age in sort of economic terms.
Yeah.
In 2019, we've actually moved office since then.
Really.
Yeah, we were only just moving into a new office in 2019, and we now moved into another new office. So
Really?
it seemed like an age ago.
Yeah, we moved office, but we only moved upstairs, so it wasn't that exciting.
Yeah.
But before we get going with our discussion, we've got some very big news to discuss with TradeLedgers today. But before we get going, why don't you give our viewers just a bit of an insight into who you are, your position, and what TradeLedger actually does?
Sure. So my name is Martin McCann. I'm the founder and CEO of TradeLedger, and we are a provider of software to mainly commercial banks that enables them to digitize credit and lending products to their business customers. So essentially, we create a digital, almost instantaneous credit and lending capability for commercial banks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. Now, we mustn't keep them waiting any longer, Martin. What is the news? What have you come to Sibos to announce?
So actually, it was HSBC that made the announcement,
Okay.
which we're very, very excited about. They have announced a partnership that we've had in place with them now for coming on 3 years.
Okay.
And what they announced today was the fact that they have launched a world first new digital product for lending called Digital Receivables Finance. Receivables finance is an interesting asset class. It's one of the highest potential growth asset classes for credit purposes in businesses. But what they've announced today is the fact that they have now launched in 13 countries a new digital version of the product based on TradeLedger technology. And what that means for customers, that the time to actually get credit from that product has gone down from 1 to 2 months to 48 hours.
That's fantastic. It's what a solution, and I think in terms of the current lending climate, it's very timely. But I wanted to ask you directly. I mean, why now? Why is this product needed now?
Well, actually, it's quite interesting. Retail banks have digitized over the last 10 years. Commercial banks are probably next in focus and are behind that curve. And some of it is because of the complexity of the product. So I describe what we do as automating complex lending products for commercial banks. They're complex because they're more difficult than sort of retail lending products such as overdrafts or term loans, etc. So it's harder is the first thing. But the second thing is the pandemic actually showed up the weaknesses in doing sort of manual and paper-based processes in any part of the bank. And because of the complexity, there's still parts of commercial lending which are paper-based and relationship-driven. And of course, when you can't get into the office because the office is closed for health and safety reasons, that means the business stops. So there's a real focus on the need to modernize some of the infrastructure that drives sort of lending. And innovation happens where capital flows. So if capital is not flowing, the economy is not innovating and it's not growing. In fact, it's going in reverse and it's coming to a dead stop. So the time is now. I mean, when I started the business in 2016, it was a strong belief that the mismatch in supply and demand in sort of business credit was going to be fixed sometime in the next decade. It's just a matter of how and who was going to initiate that. But that's what we've really been focused on, and that's why now it's sort of the disruption of the pandemic and the fact that we've seen other parts of banking complete their digital transformation means that commercial lending has now come into focus.
You're absolutely right, and it's more topical now than ever, really, as you've emphasised in your point just there. In terms of HSBC specifically, I mean, how are they achieving this for their customers?
So they have actually provided a new product. It's a HSBC product that uses our technology. So there's an online portal. That online portal is effectively the entire online application, which replaces all of the other steps that went before. And the secret sauce here is that customers can actually connect up their data in a few clicks via APIs, rather than having to create sort of documents that they then submit to the bank for approval for the process. And that's where we get a lot of the automation and a lot of the improvements in customer experience. So you've gone from days or weeks of preparing data and application forms to just a couple of clicks to actually authorize data transfer through APIs from your systems, and the process actually happens automatically.
So you've whittled down the process, really streamlined it, but how does it actually work?
So the data then that we bring in from the APIs, that's a good question, is actually then fed into a number of different software capabilities, which we have designed and co-created with HSBC, which then automates different aspects of the process through to the approvals and the drawdown of funds. So everything from the risk assessment process, which is a very, very specialist job, we've kind of codified the logic in the risk manager's heads, and we've actually made it so that it can scale with this higher quality data set that we're bringing through. So we've unmoved that block. Then the decision can be made. Then all of the documents around sort of risk decisioning can be done. All of the offer documentation can be done. And across all of that, we provide a single sort of orchestration capability. What that actually means is that all the bankers who need to talk to each other to get the job done and the credit approved can all talk to each other in this one single space, and they can talk to the customer. They don't have to go through a specific relationship manager. So it's just using enterprise technology for what it's designed for and what it's been used for in other industries. It's just now the time for commercial banks.
Well, that's fantastic. In terms of HSBC's footprint, and as well as your own company's footprint, I mean, geographically, where can we expect to see this solution being applied?
So right now it's officially GA in 8 countries. It'll be 11 by the end of the year and 13 early next year. Some of those countries include the biggest markets in the world for HSBC. So like the Hong Kong, the UK, the US and India, which are both the biggest markets today and some of the biggest growth markets.
So where else is the TradeLedger tech-led solution being applied?
So our solution is actually deployed in almost 20 countries around the world now.
Okay.
We have global operations. The only country we don't support at this point in time are China and Russia.
Oh, yes.
But basically, because it's a SaaS product, we can deploy in a new country in as short a time period as 6 weeks. And that's kind of the MO that we have with HSBC. So that it's a local version of the solution. So it's not just a global product. I call it a local product. It's designed globally, but it's customized for local requirements, and it all works on the same infrastructure. We have operations in Sydney, in London, in Poland, and the US. So we're I'd call a burgeoning sort of global software company to support the global sort of commercial bank industry.
Fantastic. Well, you've arrived at Sibos with really good news in your step, and of course with HSBC as well. I'm sure they'll be over the moon about this new TradeLedger supported technology. In terms of taking that forward into what's beyond these doors is the conference. What else are you hoping to achieve from your time at Sibos this week?
So, when you're trying to drive innovation in a highly regulated industry such as banking, it's really hard to get the momentum and the traction to start with. So we're now in the 6th year of operating the company. And I think now that we have sort of complete end-to-end sort of transformation case studies with some of the world's biggest banks, HSBC being one. We also announced a partnership with NordLB, which is earlier on that track last week. We previously announced that we're working with companies like Virgin Money as well. Yeah. So now we have enough critical mass, and we have enough use cases which are deployed showing value to the banks and to the bank's customers, that the phase for us now is about how do we scale that to help solve the industry problem. That's really what we want to do here, and that's really the point at Sibos. When we were here in 2019, we were a minnow. Banks like HSBC and the others that I mentioned, they had to take a little bit of a risk on us because nobody had ever done this before. but nobody had done it. So we were saying, well, we're the right partners for you to work with to do it. Now we've actually done it with a handful, at least, of the world's biggest banks, some very, very impressive sort of blue chip banks that we work with. Now we're saying, well, how do we actually accelerate that so that we can actually solve the industry problem that we set out to solve? And that problem is there's a massive imbalance in supply and demand for credit in order to drive innovation and growth in the economy. On average, depending which geography and which industry you're looking at, the numbers differ a little bit. But on average, there's about a 30% shortfall in credit to help drive economic growth. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve. That's the key purpose for which I started TradeLedger.
Fantastic. Well, that can only lead to innovation and better financial services. So it's a very exciting time for TradeLedger and of course for HSBC as well and all of your partners. Martin, it's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you, and of course congratulations with this latest announcement. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at Sibos, and I hope to catch up with you again soon.
Same here. Thank you so much for your time, and I've enjoyed the conversation.